Nobody. But you know how many computers know your passwords right now? You know how many computers know your passwords right now and sharing that information with each other right now? You understand? This is what happens when you have or live with demons. You know what I'm saying? They want to create an alternate reality. They want to create different zones, like in Westworld, where you exist or you can go to different eras, like this Antebellum movie they're coming out with. You know what I'm saying? Already out. Yeah, it's already out. And it basically, spoiler, like it's basically like the same shit we know that they doing. You understand? And it's all these movies showing the real horror now. The real horror is white supremacy. You know what I'm saying? And so now that has replaced, for black people, that has replaced the Jasons and the Freddys and the Michael Myers. You understand? So these Lovecraft shows and us really started with Get Out. You know what I mean? And there was movies like this before him, but they were more subtle, like Brother from Another Planet. You know what I mean? Or stuff like that. But these ones, starting from Get Out, just became more blatantly about how devilish the white people are. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, the overall science is that, it takes, all of this is still happening. The idea that white supremacy is the ultimate public health crisis is the truth. Yet, once the people are infected with it, you know what I mean? It gets past quarantine. You can't quarantine racists. You know what I'm saying? You can only deal with the reality of the racism that's created because it still benefits everybody else. So as a construct, race itself does not exist. It does not. It became a construct on the physical planet after the 1900s. Prior to the 1900s, the concept of it being race or racial was also somewhat ambiguous because everybody was basically of the same race, not necessarily of the same nativity, but essentially the melanated people were still dominant all over the planet. We can read what allegedly Benjamin Franklin wrote about the Palatine Moors and about how everybody basically in the known world is basically black. All of France, all of Italy, you know what I'm saying? All of these places is straight black. But what was I gonna say? But when we say black, we're talking about, melanated. But this is what he wrote back then. The problem with that is that it conflicts with the historic aspect of what we've accepted our history to be. And so that puts us in conflict with our own brothers and sisters again, because they have accepted an aspect of their society by which they could not adequately explain, because they themselves also bought into the narrative. And so now you trying to explain the narrative in some ways also exploits the narrative, because in exploiting it, what we're saying, when we come out and you say, okay, well, slavery ain't happened like that. How black people hear that is that all of the trauma, all of the situation that they done told me about and I done grew up accepting is not real. But really, what's happening, I think, on a subconscious level is then that if that is not real, or if it didn't happen the way that I have been explained or beat down or accepted or whatever, that has happened that way, then that means there's an element of me as an individual that not only bought into it, but accepted it on a intrinsic level that they are superior. You understand? It's unspoken. It's not something that's on the surface. And so what that really says then about the individual, because we're talking about the illness, we're talking about the illness, the systematic aspect of what we what we erroneously call white supremacy, because they can't never be supreme. So the very name of what we call it is oxymoronic within itself. Therefore, it can't even be that. You know what I'm saying? So on a fundamental level, what the individual who's accepted that has to then accept is the white man is not God. You hear what I'm saying? That means that there was already an acceptance of inferiority that was accepted on a intrinsic, almost psychological, sub-psychological, subconscious level. That this means that I actually had all the control. What about me was so broken or so weak that I accepted this as true? That's why after a certain amount of time, you get angry, you get knowledge of self, you get real happy, you get, you know what I'm saying? You see the unity within the people based on the historical stuff. Then a couple months in, you start to notice the isolation, right? Then you start making decisions, excuses for them. Oh, they don't know, they this, that, and that, right? Then the apathy, everybody else's apathy begins to discuss you. Right? Begins to disgust you because now you're the one in the family that's not going along with the program all of a sudden. And what do they use against you? They use your collective past, the collective miseducation that they helped give you. Right?
I just can't smoke without him being right in my face.
So it's created this situation where you're always in a quandary. You're always in a quandary, or you're always trying to figure out. And then what happens? You start getting angry. Then you don't want to build with nobody, right? Right? And so now you become the aberration. Now you be the one that when you walk in the room, people stop talking. When you used to walk in the room, everybody, yo, what's up? Blah, 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 right? Because now you're not eating the pork. Now you're not believing in Joe Biden. Now you're not into voting. Now you're not into, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. Right? You the problem now. Because what? What's the real problem? You understand? This is a psychological, this is a phenomenon that happens with people who regain consciousness of who they are. But what happens? What really happened? What really happened is that you rejected the God of the land that you're in. You understand? You rejected on a fundamental level the idea that these people have a godhood above you. Why should the Palatine Moors be suffered to swarm into our settlements? They will never adopt our customs any more than they can adopt our complexion. All of Africa, Asia, and the Americas are swarthy black. Russia, Italy, Spain, France, the Swedes, and the Germans are black. The principal whites are made up of Saxons and English. The Scots, the Welsh, the Irish are not Saxon or English. So that means that they're all what? Black. When Benjamin Franklin writes this essay, 1751, the black German King George II is sitting on the throne of England. Period. So they didn't go from the 1700s all being black to the 1800s to all being black to then, boom, 1900, now everybody white. And what popped it off worldwide? The birth of a nation, right? That's when black people basically became non-descendable. Non-descendable, meaning that there were millions of people living in the West that were not African, but were reclassified as Africans. And because of that reclassification, they had become non-descendable. If your skin was dark, then it was believed that you were from Africa, and therefore your indigenous nationality was stripped from you. You understand? This is why you don't have any Africans trying to come over here to find the people that they sold.
It's okay, I'll roll my own. Just sit down. Thank you.
So they became this mass of people who, after a certain time, were racially misidentified. You could never be a slave because, again, to say that would then mean to say that you are a Slovenian. You accepting his slave to slave is like you saying that you're Chinese. You know what I'm saying? Yes, but that was just one African, Negro, colored. Because through the time they got to move you further away from anything that's concretely identifiable as yours. So even when we say Creek and when we say this or that, we're really still talking about the indigenous Moors or the indigenous Maya or Aztec or whatever, because those we call Creeks really came from what we call Yamasi. Yamasi is all of that's Maya. All of those Maya or still Maya or Mayak. You know what I'm saying? So there's this disconnect because we're all out here going back and forth about who's Indian and who's this and that, and the world is literally changing form around us, meaning that the barriers that exist between the realities themselves are fluctuating. And so the more that happens, the more they need to keep us in a mundane state. You know what I'm saying? Focusing on aspects of things that really have no relevance or importance to what is actually happening to us. And whenever it comes to us, it's always us mitigated with some other class. Now they trying to link black people with homosexuals as if it's the same struggle. And we know it's not, but they have black so-called folks doing that. Everybody's beefing about Cuties, this pedo show that they put on about the little girls, where they had over 650 girls audition twerking in front of these people, and they got a black woman that allegedly say she the director of it. So here again is another so-called black woman using the sexuality of children under the guise of some sort of empowerment. You understand? When that has nothing to do with anything. But all of that is Roman desensitization, or more specifically, Herculean pedagogy, basically. So, like I was talking to y'all about the different fields of reality in the realm. That's why you're seeing the double up of these suns all over the place, and why it's so damn hot, and why everything is burning. Like with the fires in California, as soon as they passed the pedophile bill, everything went crazy. That's not coincidence, you know. That's the fulfillment of what has to happen in order to get rid of these roaches. Because the fires themselves are controlled. They're not coming just from nowhere. There's no way that you can have stuff burning. I'll show you. They have stuff burning. All the houses is burnt to ash, but the trees right outside is perfectly fine. That's more than a controlled burn. That's more than a controlled demolition. That is what's called laser point precision. Right here is the New Madrid fault line. This is what everybody is low-key bugging about because it's become active again. It's right in the middle of the country. This is what set off the joint that basically aftershocked the entire world. So ultimately, all of these things are basically, compounded on the ideal, the premise that things have to change, of course, because we got Jupiter and what you call it trining. So everything is coming out. It's all coming out. So for those people that weren't here last week, I wanted to go over. Everybody uses terms like they. We talk about the sacrificing and the all of the crazy stuff that's happening with the people. They all orchestrating it, and everybody tends to focus on the on like the banking institution, the federal side of it, or even the entertainment wing of it, because it's all the same government. You understand? Hollywood, the mob, all of these things that seem like they were against each other were all part of the same system. And every movie that we've ever watched has shown us that. We've seen how many movies, gangster movies, going all the way back to the serials, to the Pope serials they used to show in black and white, and you always see the mobsters paying off the cops.
Yeah,
right? Always. Cops is always in the brothels. The cops is always involved with it because, again, the police was just an aberrant part. They're not a natural part of government because they weren't in the original constitutions. You used the sheriff, the deputy sheriff, and then whoever they deputize. The police is a part of the municipality and the municipal function. Okay? Remember, it was the mob that helped the CIA and all of these dudes during the whole Cuban Missile Crisis and all of that stuff. It was the mob that worked with CIA to get rid of Jack and program his wife to do all of the stuff that they did and all that. Remember, all these people was working together. Understand. Remember Enron? Y'all remember that? Remember Enron? Okay. The same dudes that was doing Enron is the same dudes that's going down right now in the Senate with all of these hearings and stuff. Comey and all these guys you named. All of those guys are the same guys. The same guys, yo. So they're totally against this natural upheaval of nature. So all of these people who fund these so-called black bag or black program projects all are okayed or created under the so-called J.A.S.O.N society. And those J.A.S.O.N society, these are when you talk about the rituals and the sacrifices and this and that, these are the guys that's doing the math work on it, creating the algorithms, working on the D-Wave technology, trying to open up, creating a way to mimic the rituals of the ancient ones that they following to find ways to bring them in. All of that crazy stuff, that's these guys. Who are they? They are an independent group of elite scientists. There you go. Elites, right? Which advise the U.S. government on matters of science and technology, mostly of a sensitive nature. Sensitive. Operative meaning sensitive, meaning extrasensory perception. Understand? Psychics, telepaths, telekinesis, people into telekinesis, remote viewers, those are all called sensitives. You understand? Right? The group was created in the aftermath of the Sputnik launch. This is the Soviets now. Launch as a way to reinvigorate the ideas of having the nation's preeminent scientists help government with the defense problem, similar to the way scientists helped in World War II, but with a new and younger generation. It was established in 1960 and has somewhere between 30 and 60 members. 3 and 6, right? Or 3 sixes. You understand? 30 and 60, 3 6, right? 3-6 scientific mafia. Started in 1960 in a result that mimicked how the scientists helped them in World War II. Who were the scientists that helped them in World War II? Where did they come from? Nazis. The white ones. The white Nazis. Right? But with the, its first gained public notoriety as a source of the Vietnam's War McNamara line electronic barrier. The McNamara line electronic barrier was used during a CIA operation to help a CIA operation referred to as Air America. Air America, which was also a movie done about it with Mel Gibson and Robert Downey Jr., was all about the CIA establishing a fake air courier service that they was really moving drugs and cocaine and heroin and stuff from Laos, out of Laos, which they was supposedly not able to get into. Wasn't supposed to be in, I should say. Everybody got it? So these are the same people. Although most of his research is military focused, J.A.S.O.N also produced early work on the science of global warming and acid rain. See? Current unclassified research interests include health informatics, cyber warfare, renewable energy, all of the crap that these people are trying to shove down our throats today, right? This is where it's coming from specifically. There's the public side of the J.A.S.O.N Society, of course, where they will give you a kind of breakdown of who they are. But then the other side, again, is totally black box. You can't get into that. J.A.S.O.N typically performs most of its work during the annual summer study. Its sponsors include the Department of Defense and the Department of Energy and the U.S. intelligence community. Isn't that great? The name J.A.S.O.N, sometimes explained as an acronym, meaning what? July, August, September, October, November, the months in which the group would typically meet, or tongue-in-cheek for the junior achiever. It just also happens to be those are the heaviest sacrificial months. Look at how many people died, heavy people died, societal-wise, since J.A.S.O.N started. Do you want better? Go back and look at all of the hits that went down between July and September for the past 10 years. You will bug out. Yep. Yes. But it's actually based on what? Greek mythology, right? See, again, the Hercules thing. Again, always taking it back to Greek mythology because that is their veil for the satanic Areopagite sacrificial, Transengatian magic Harishef stuff they've been doing. Yeah, we're going to get to her in a second. Because Ginsburg was also a pro-pedophilia candidate. because she come from that whole Ginsburg thing. It was what's her name, Ginsburg, and then there was Allen Ginsburg, remember? And he was part of NAMBLA. And what was NAMBLA? The Man Boy Love Association, right? Another veil for the Herculean, baby-eating, homosexual rituals. JASON studies have included the now mothballed system for communicating submarines, extremely long-wave radio waves, boom, boom, boom. Project Seafarer, representing Poseidon. Project Sanguine, meaning Project Blood, right? So, boom, all of that goes into DARPA, which is the Defense Advanced Research Project Agency. This research project agency is responsible for the development of emerging technologies used by the military. Originally known as the Advanced Research Project Agency, the agency was created in February when? 1958. When was what you call it, JASON created? 1960, right? Boom. So this is before, right? And then it was implemented by Dwight D. Eisenhower in response to the Soviet launching of Sputnik 1 in 1957. By collaborating with the academic, industry, and government partners, DARPA formulates and executes research and development projects to expand the frontiers of what? Technology, science, often beyond immediate U.S. military requirements. So when we talk about the gematria and how they sacrifice people, and how they use the numbers and the geographic location and the wind time and all of that. Like if you was a sniper, like you have to take into account the so-called rotation of the earth, the wind, the sun, you know what I'm saying? When, at what time the moon is going to rise. Like you gotta, and then you gotta just calculate all of that for 1 second of motion. So all of so-called United States technology, United States government, or United States whatever, is run through these mechanisms. Which is why, again, it's the first time in history that an artificial intelligence has been basically sued in court. You know what I'm saying?
Can you get the other one in the drawer?
Because they created a vacuum.
It's so good if you don't see it. Okay.
Bring it in. Yeah, so this is all of this compounded. So this present situation that we're in, or that we found ourselves in, was basically mandated or predisposed by these people, and in various other organizations like the Gates Foundation, the CDC, the World Health Organization. They all correspond to this in their own way. So being that the tectonic plates on this side of the planet is shifting to such a degree, also based on all the inner turmoil that's happening both above and below the ground, they are now trying to implement this Agenda 21 situation basically to reduce most of the country into wildlife, turn it back into preserve. Basically let all the animals free and put all the humans in what they call smart cities. That's what the sanctuary city was about. When Trump came in office and started the purge on the Mexicans, he created like a declaration of war. And so everybody that was left basically chose sides, and they did it along the party lines and basically worked from that point on to destroy the United States from within by passing legislation that would be so heinous or so whatever that by the time he get out of one situation, there's another one he got to deal with. Now, remember I told you, for those people that don't understand, there's two separate United States basically congruently in conflict with one another. But neither one of those has anything to do with us. Well, one of them do, but even that one only deals with us as the inheritors of the governmental function, as a representative of our will. So for those who weren't here last week, I'll show it again. This is the original and the mirror. The General United States government in General Congress assembled in the family of nations. And then you have the administrative government of the presidency of the office of the presidency of the United States of America. Excuse me, the administrative office of the presidency of the United States of America. What this guy has been doing is striving to phase this one out and be totally back in this one. Or at least that's how it seems. Okay? So everything is enshrined within specific legislation or specific or within their statutes, right? So in the original pledge, it don't say nothing about indivisible and under God and all. It don't say none of that. In this one it do, because it's bringing you under the government and the ordinance and the defense, which is why the Bible was adopted as law under the mirror government. See, yes, de facto and de jure. So you have the official seal, you have the official flag. These are not the flags that are flying in variations of United States installations around the planet. What's flying is this thing over here, the war banner with the gold fringes on it. Just like when you see the police wearing that police flag with the blue stripe in it, that is not only insubordination, but that's insurrection, because that is also a perversion of the United States historic flag, which is protected under 4 United States Chapter 1, Section 1. Under the official flag, you know what I'm saying, it cannot be re-represented in any other form. So any other form that you see that flag would be a violation. So anybody burning that flag can go to jail. Understand? Anybody burning this flag, you're not really burning nothing, because that's falling under this historical 50-star flag that really was an annexation when they took what they call Hawaii, which was really Russian America. You know what I'm saying?
It's your birthday. He always cuts himself.
It wasn't just. Islam, can you hear me? Okay. Let's see. Okay, so from there you have the Congress of the United States, which is different than the United States Congress. So when you hear them say United States Congress, again, they talk about this. If you ever hear them say the Congress of the United States, they're talking about the Republic. Okay. Excuse me. So the preamble to the 7th article, all of that is under this. The Republic. The Republic represents the establishment of those so-called Americans who existed here prior to the colonial migrations. Okay. And they conglomerated themselves through Confederacy to create what we call the United States. And then something happened. Once they consolidated themselves as a government, the governments or the foreign powers that also had sway over the land, whether it was Morocco, whether it was Russia, whether it was Turkey, whatever, they and the people that lived in their lands were now in a position to become citizens of the United States, because anybody that sought to be a citizen was considered that, or was brought into the Union if they agreed to do that. So, as for instance, let's see. In essence, the 14th Amendment grants American citizens equal protection under law, but for public officials or states which are engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States, those equal protections are revoked. Democrats already know all of this, which is why they are pursuing a plan of election chaos, hoping to throw the entire election process into mass confusion, from which they can plan to attempt an illegal coup to eliminate so-called Trump from office and claim political power over the nation. But this has been happening since the so-called wide awakes staged their little fake coup and what became the whole Redmond Whig Party and all of this other stuff that happened later. But in the outset, all of these movements was all original people. Just like the original Aryans was so-called melanated, the original Caucasians was originally melanated, you understand? The original Indians not even called Indians, they're called Jawaras. They're older than everybody that's in India today. They're older than all of the people built. They the ones there. That's the one that built all imperialism. You see what I mean? So the whole mask thing. See, in a satanic ritual, each person wears a mask, and each person wearing a mask has to stand 6 inches apart, 6 feet apart. First of all, you know what I'm saying? So that should tell you, number one, what's going on with that. Now, the 14th Amendment, which governs the Negroes, right, speaks directly to the powers of the federal government in dealing with the officials, individuals, or states engaged in rebellion against the United States. So being engaged in rebellion in the United States basically means in you or somebody doing something to basically impede the United States government. See, the government can impede you, but you can't impede the government because of how they're structured. Sorry. because of how it's structured presently. Because again, the original government, the original republic, United States, looked nothing like what we were taught it looked like. For instance, okay. Okay, I'm gonna show you a white man, an American, excuse me, an American Indian. And one second, guys. Mm, that's a good one. Anybody have any questions while I'm looking this up? Yeah, anything through the preamble to the 7th article specifically was about everybody that was here prior to them setting up the craziness. You know what I mean? And then everything else from there to the 14th was basically all of the people's coming in trying to benefit from the Europa thing and the being that they were freed up from Europa to a certain degree, and then also from participating in forced servitude. Sorry, babe. So look at it like this. This would be a white man. This would be Free Moore or Freeman. This would be basically an American Indian. You know what I mean? During the time we're speaking of what we're speaking about. Instead of what we've been taught, I understand as that. This ain't Lincoln. This is, I believe, Doug Meade, who is one of the people in the Congress. Yes. So at the time of the 1787, if you notice, prior to that, you had the subjects of Morocco or the Emperor of Morocco sending a message to the Sultan, basically wanting to be freed up from whatever was happening with them in the United States in terms of the bondage. You notice they had what you would consider American names, like regular names, meaning white people names. And they have names like Muhammad and stuff like that. So around the time of the Treaty of Peace of Friendship, you had an influx of Irish, Welsh, and Scottish, these type of people coming over here. But remember, as we just read in the Franklin Declaration, all of these people was melanated. But it was said that if they was to be pledge allegiance again to the Sultan of Morocco, then they would fall under that protection. You see what I'm saying? This became the free white people. Who had been here or had been traveling back and forth through here under the ancient protection of the Moorish Empire, but then when certain, let's say when Britain took over Ireland or whatever, those Moors that was already there, you see, who was at war with the British Empire, whatever, they still was cool with the Moroccan. So they could still politic through British territories if they was under Moroccan jurisdiction, you see. So during the 1787, you'll notice the influx of these people and all of these people claiming protection under the Sultan of Morocco, even though they weren't technically what you call Moroccans, but they became subjects of, you see, because the Moroccan Empire was over the British Empire. But all of these people we talk about is melanated to varying degrees. Understand? Not white the way we've been taught to understand them. So I'm just using these as examples of what the people that we're talking about was actually dealing with or look like. At the time we're speaking. So another example would be a white man from France, right? So you understand how nationality in plays and how color was really injected later. So this is an example. This is a German, one of the oldest German houses, right? The Schwarzenberger, which is the home, which is the parent of the Schwarzenegger. And then this right here is Ptolemy, right? One of the Ethiopian Christ, because Ptolemy is basically that dynasty is connected to the Sabaean Ethiopians, Cleopatra. And then this is Dumont. Alexander Dumont wrote Count of Monte Cristo, Three Musketeers, and all of that. Who was the number 2 for Napoleon. Now, all three of these people right here, which I'm showing you, would be or are considered white. These are white men as well. Understand what I'm saying? Because this is the caste that these people is dealing with. Yes, white is a status. White is always in status. It'll never have nothing to do with color. That's what I'm trying to show you with the last situation. See, I showed you how the so-called American, the American U.S. citizen, the Moor, and then the American Indian. They all the same color, but they all occupy different what statuses. So the Abraham looking dude, it was white too. Just like this German dude right here on this coat of arms of the Schwarzenberger. This is a real family. But as you see, he has the Roman laureate around his head, just like he do, because this is the same. These guys right here, these are all Romans too. Understand? They're all Romans. They're also all Ethiopians, because this is the root. We're going to the root of where all of the cultures is coming from, and essentially, this is all from the Roman line. But that Roman line has a byway of India, which is the Hindu connection, right? Which then brings us to Babylon, then into Old Europe, and then by way of France into what we call the Americas. You see, in terms of the occult aspect of how all of this was used to then shape the world where we look at it now in reverse. because it wasn't about color. Everybody was white, or when they talking about they was a white man, and this they talking about the status of the individual that had come into play by the British by 1681. And these whites had whites under them, WIGHT, slaves that they tended to use with each other as commerce or whatever. Yes, white, black. So when you had the US coming in now to enact different codes, right, that would then affect how they did business with their other nations. Remember, there's other nations that's already here, that's invested and has already been making and spending money. Like I said, Russia had colonies here, Britain had colonies here, whatever. So the United States government, even though it made deals with Britain and stuff like that to establish itself, still, in a sense, was a threat, was not as friendly to monarchies as the monarchies would have liked, because again, technically, it was like they was giving people free choice. And all of these monarchies was still in bed with the United States. I mean, was still part of these so-called royal families. So you have some of them backing it, some of them not. And so you have all of these world powers on all of these different land masses that's now trying to find ways to maintain control over what was left. So for instance, this is the Sundance Kid. Right? And then on your left, in the middle and the left is a Sundance Kid. The real Sundance Kid, and then when he was in the army. And then second when he was the outlaw. And then the other one on the left is now Filbert II, who was from the house of Savoy, who by which Kid and his family allegedly descend from through a Savoy house. Now the house of Savoy, like I said, is an old Ethiopian Roman house, originally descended from those first so-called Ethiopians who settled at Liabella and then moved the capital to Axum after routing the original dynasties that was there after they were kicked out of India, and then merged their iconography, their gods, under the icon gods of the so-called Christian faith, and then adopted Christianity as the official religion, I think, under Azania, King Azania the First, I think. And then they became, let's say, a Roman, so-called Christian nation, which is why they didn't go to war with Rome like that, because that was their satellite kingdom. Because the mothers, the dowagers, the rich people of Ethiopia went to Rome, or what was becoming Rome, and they became the rape mothers of Romulus and Remus's people. You see? And from there, the aristocracy of Rome always looked to Ethiopia as their true forefathers. And so anybody that became the king of Rome by way, anybody that became king of Ethiopia via Rome became known as the king of Italy. You understand? And so these descendants were also descendant and also had people who they had to do knowledge with here in the States, because they had married into these families, remember? And so they went to war with each other, same way they doing it with each other now, but we did it back then. And so when you talk about these outlaws, like I said, Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid, Billy the Kid, Bass Reeves, who was really the Lone Ranger, Tonto, all these people was real. You understand? Yes, so the House of Savoy, again, the Roman side, i.e. the Christian side, started again with these Indian pseudo-black people who set up shop in Ethiopia, created a sub-colony in Italy, and then used the sub-colony in Italy to invade Africa by proxy via different agents, and then eventually reorganized it as the Byzantine Empire in the West. So those Jesuit Catholics, those original Catholics that we're talking about, all these people is black people. Who are using these pawns, these political situations. That so when they was robbing these banks and all of that back in the days, and all of that, that was them striving to bankrupt different aspects of the Confederacy or the Republic, depending on who was paying them to do that. So all these stories are talking to us about Davy Crockett. Davy Crockett was a black man. How did a white man come over here fresh off the boat and within a year knew how to go up and down the creek and all of that? Just give us the stories in reverse. And again, we don't go through and do the knowledge, so it becomes fact. Like, for instance, this is an image, again, of the master and the slave. How it was really going down in the time period versus what they tell us. See the tall Algerine, the master, the slave, the Persian dancer, the eunuch. That's why he got the sword over his joint. Examples of what I'm talking about in terms of who ruling and who doing what. Sign of slave ship. See, he got the sword, the star. Because the Algerines, the Tangerines, the Mandarines, all of these is black people. We've seen this picture, but nobody ever told us this is one of the sultans of Morocco, dressed as a Themin warrior. Themin being one of the groups, clans of the Hausa. So again, you had different people who were here, who were so-called melanated or whatever, who, for whatever political reason, decided to go into a different national identity, whether it was Moorish or whatever, and then but did it to the point that they could no longer define by which they actually descended from. You see what I'm saying? And now these non-descendables get grouped under the Negro black thing, and because they have no state to vouch for them, you see what I mean? It becomes this errant situation where we can no longer vouch for each other based upon our nationality. Because again, you gave that up to go into that. Like I said, you had British, Welsh people who were so against the British that they all pledged allegiance to the empire. You know, it became Moors. You understand? And then through that got them passage over here. You see? And then they hooked up with they people who was already here, who lived on the colonies as British citizens, but they couldn't really rock with them because, again, the British was at war over who was ruling Ireland or England or whatever at the time. And again, like I said, this was now the nobles going against each other. This is the Bruces going against the House of Stuart and all of that. But all of these are black people. That's what we got to remember. That's where we get it twisted, because we're looking at it again from the bottom up. But we were really in it from the top down. So here again is another example of a Christian Jewish king, a sultan of Morocco, right? And then a so-called native king. So the cultures that we refine or refer to as Native American, whatever, you know, is or American Indian, lack of a better word. It's cool because it takes you out of the misnomer of the black situation. The only issue then becomes the traditional concept of identifying one along a actual landmass. That's where bridging the name or the nationality with the geographic location comes into the word Moorish American. See what I'm saying? Yet, if you're speaking then of yourself of the so-called Moorish people, the individual or the plural, you could be a Moor, as in peace Moor or Islam Moor. You see? So, for instance, one of the winner sheiks, right? The fez with the horn, representing, let's say, American Indian or winner sheik or a scolio or whatever. Here again is James, King of England, Scotland, Norway, right? Who's also Hebrew, but is also seen as Christian, right? And then here then is the Sultan, you see, representing the so-called Islamic Moorish side of things. With James, albeit these in the same era, this maybe James being 100, this picture representing James maybe 150 years before these guys was here, but you still get the point. Right. And remember, the queens or the daughters of the English royal family were taught at the halls of Cordoba. So now if we flip it a little, we just got to remember that everything that we were given in terms of instruction, TV, or whatever, was still filtered through the alternative reality that they created that we refer to as Reconstruction. So the black people became white, the white people became black, in order to keep the general machine of the United States functioning, to be able to draw out of it what they needed to perpetuate this or aspects of this reality. And if we put it like this, this is now bringing the color thing into it. So now, instead of James, we get the followers of James through the colorism factor, through the Freemason thing. This is Thornton Jackson. This is the guy that worked with Albert Pike to reframe the so-called morals and dogma to help establish the KKK and flip the whole black people into slave thing by the 1900s. See him with the triple cross on, right? So technically, this then would be a white man. See? This now is a red Indian. See? This is now a renegade Indian or a wild savage or a Muslim. See what I mean? Yeah, or let's say an Arab. Yeah, it's even better. But these is all original people, just not original from America. He's originally from, his people is originally from Europe. See what I'm saying? His people is originally from America and some from Siberia, because he's like a Zambo, right? And then he's straight Mauritanian, let's say indigenous to, let's say America or Western Africa, with native elements, which is why all of the quarter of the so-called Native American names or Indian tribe names all have Islamic roots, which means they came out of an Islamic situation. And through that Islamic situation, through that Islamic influence came then the European. You see what I'm saying? It wasn't the other way around. It was the Islamic influence first, coming from the ancients. It was the ancient aspects of Islam first. And then by the time of what we call the colonial period, then now that is now couched within that Islamic influence is now this European, you see what I'm saying, westernized view of everything. And then came everything else. To understand the roots of why we worship and why we thought the white man was God and all of this. The only way to not do it is to understand why it was done. So when we talk about the influx of slavery, of slaves from Africa being brought into the United States and all of that, that can't be true, because really we have an influx between 1840 and 1910. Now remember, during this time, right, the capital of Russian America or New Russia, or it's called Nova San, forget what it's called in Russian, but right here was Alaska. Understand? Yeah, all the way down to here, really. It was all of this. Well, like here and here. Well, more specifically, I would say the islands, like, you know what I'm saying? And so they created this influx by which the Tsar freed up a lot of them so they could come over here and work for him. This is where we get the influx of all of these poor white Slavs who for generations have been locked up. You see what I'm saying? And then on the other side now, through the British side, you get this influx of Slavs coming from here. But at the time, you see how it says Mongolian, Mongoloids. Okay. Now, some people find that derogatory or whatever, but I don't mean it like that. You know, these people today, they start BLMing you and painting. You know what I'm saying? Having gender reveal parties and then allegedly burning down half the state. Like, come on, bro. This is them. When we talking about the native Siberians, the dark-skinned Zambos that was here in the United States and all of that, we can trace all of them back to when Genghis and them, through the Timurin, came over here. Which means that they came over here. And they wasn't the ones that was in charge. Well, they was the ones that was in charge, but they fell under the Moors that had already checked them at Natchez, which was the Mississippi. I showed the book a couple of times. You can check that out. I'll try to show, if I find it, I'll show it again. So when they talk about the Mongols coming over here, this is what they talk about. And one of the first places they was allowed to set up was what we call Chinatown in California, in Khalifa at the time. Exactly. So we're not, so again, where did these lighter skinned Chinese people come from? You see what I'm saying? Because this is who was coming over here. The white people that look like the white people that was coming over here from the Atlantic that wound up at Ellis and all of them, these are the ones that was now being put under heavy restriction. And then the ones that was already from here that was vetted became known as the natives. Why? Because a native was somebody whose mother had been enslaved during the 16th and the 17th centuries. Those people who had that happen to them were these type of people and the so-called whites. And the people who enslaved them decided to bring them over here as their pets or whole servants to work their land, which they had purchased from those who were already here. And the governments that was functioning here, or the government that functioned here under the Confederacy, was loosely affiliated through the Articles of Association. And until the usurpation didn't find a need to really consolidate itself until after. So after all of that happened, and then after the 1787 situation, where now the Constitution is signed and the Treaty of Peace of Friendship is signed, you get an influx again of original so-called Europeans, Moors, or original people from Europe who wanted to claim amnesty or wanted to be able to live on the lands that was associated with the Sultan. You see what I'm saying? Even though they were Irish, Welsh, and whatever. And then those who were already on the land here, as seen in the Moorish the Sundry Free Moors Act, right? They had already been petitioning to make that happen from the 1700s. See what I mean? So where were the black slaves when all of this was happening? Because this to do any of what I'm talking about, you need to read, you need to know how to read, you need to know how to write, you need to know how to navigate, right? So where was these slaves learning how to do all this stuff? Think about it. How was they doing this? When allegedly, you know what I'm saying? Like I said, remember, we're not talking about Caucasian world. Whatever these white people say that they was doing at this time is a lie. It gotta be. And if they was just doing it in their own little Caucasian little worlds where their little influence has some sway. Other than that, they wasn't moving nothing. They wasn't even Jews then. The Khazarians, Hitler, Black Hitler, basically wiped them out. or set up the camps with black Himmler in them, and then the white versions. The story I got was that Charlie Chaplin was used as the dude for Hitler after they seen him in The Dictator, and then they filmed all of those serials with him giving the speeches and all that crazy stuff. While the real war was being fought amongst the real rulers and owners, who again was melanated. Because these were the so-called Semites, or the Jews, at the time all of this stuff was allegedly happening. So I don't know what these people talking about. None of these people look like they from Europe, do they? Semitic, right? Relating or denoting a family of languages that includes Hebrew, Arabic, and Aramaic, and certain ancient languages such as Phoenician and Akkadian, constituting the main subgroup of the Afro-Asiatic family. Afro-Asiatic, this ain't thing about Africa. Just saying if you have an afro or can grow an afro or have afro-type hair, you're an Asiatic, and these people apply to you. This is the Moorish Zionist Hebrews of Harlem. At your bottom right is the Saudi royal family. You mean, yeah. It's what the real Saudis look like. And these guys married the slaves, the slave daughters of the white Arabs to produce more pale white Arabs. And then that became the process. Then those white Arabs took dark African slaves and then did the same thing. And then did it so that way only the lighter skinned ones would be able to move up. Because I told you, all of these guys that practice racism are all really Hindu worshippers. They're all really caste system, whether they're Nazis, whether they're Christians, whether they're Ethiopians. If they are functioning from the lighter is better situation, that's the proof that they're a part of the so-called caste system. That have the Dalits at the bottom, the dark-skinned people at the bottom. The darker you are, the more at the bottom you're going to be. So any society that's emulating that, whether it's British, whether it's whatever, I'm telling you the roots of that is coming from this ancient obsession, you know what I'm saying, with skin color and being lighter. Look at the original Liabellans and then look at the Ethiopians that came after. They were mad lighter. And so once they established Eritrea through Italy, it was a wrap. But at the time, the Eritreans, the Italians, the Ethiopians, these are all black people who are also employing poor white Slavs into their ranks to help them fight other rich black people. Those Jews and stuff like that, they all follow the Talmud. They all following witchcraft. Old Babylonian magic to serve Lucifer through different images. And no matter what society these guys was in, they was able to create a cult that was within the main body of it, so that way they could pull the stuff off. So when they was in in Persia. You know what I'm saying? They shielded it under Mithra. When they was in Phoenicia, they shielded it with Moloch. You see what I'm saying? When they was in Greece, they used Hercules. When they was in ancient Egypt, they used, Harishat, or Nekhabet. Nowadays in Hollywood, they call it Baphomet. You understand? It's the same illness. It's an alien entity that has now infested humanity and turned everything in the opposite. So, like I said, when we talk about Americans or whatever from this point on, the Europeans, you got to remember we're not talking about white people all the time. When they talking about slaves and all of that, they really talking about white people who really only came into power after the 1900s. See how we go from this more like this to them looking like this. Understand? So when they talk to us about Charles and they talked to us about the European nobility, this is why we all got European names now. They married into us over here. So historically, they don't speak about the House of Bourbon marrying into the Inca family. But the Inca is also the Dinka. Look up the Dinka people. Same people. But the white man spell it different, so it's different. So, like I told you, now that certain things ain't work, it's flipping out. So we got to rethink of how we structure our language when it comes to these entities, because they're not really what they are. So when we speak about slaves, we really talking about hostages. When we talk about plantations, we really talking about concentration camps or death camps. We talk about mistresses, we talking about rape victims. We talking about overseers, we talking about renditioners or torturers. Understand? We talking about slave traders, we're talking about human traffickers. You understand what I mean? Because when we say slave owners, how can somebody own a slave? The only people who could own slaves was the people who brought slaves out, and that was us. How could slaves own anything when they were the ones who were owned? They applied to Lincoln to get free. So that's what I mean about overhauling how we even talk about slavery. So if you say something like, so a white man will write it like, a prominent slave owner never publicly recognized the offspring of one of his slave romances, but allowed him to serve in the house. What that really translates to is that a rich human trafficker raped his female hostage and then held their son hostage as well at the death camp that he owned. Like if you start teaching history like that, white people gonna stop being racist. People gonna stop being what it is. But see, they want you to be able to still be a Negro in it. And you can't not get the real skinny on slavery and still be black in it. Because we were never the blacks in it. We were never really the Indians in it. We were the guys that was running everything, and that eventually things just fell apart because too many of us started going into different nationalities for protection. So you had straight Moors who was working with Spaniards, see what I'm saying, against other Moors who was working with Germans. You know what I'm saying? But they all Moors. You had Welsh Moors who was fighting with Irish Moors against Moors from England. All because of George. You see what I'm saying? Anybody have any questions? So the ancient name that the Americans had for China, or those that came from China, was Cathay. Cathay, or the Cathays, right? So the Cathay, or the Chinese, representing the Asiatic, or what we just seen were the Mongols, were the ones that came over in the 13th century, who around the same time through the Atlantic. Also, you get the influx of the Mande Moors coming with Abu Bakr, eventually leading to what became the unification of the West, in which the Zambos were given territory to live at off the buffalo in teepees, while the rest of us that was always here lived in all of the cities and stuff that we always had. Up until the freedom, or the extension now of the United States as a country now trying to take over all the other countries that existed on the so-called Northern Hemisphere, or Northern continent. Understand? So in a book called The Origin of the Name Indian, on page 549, it says, in Española, the best district or gold mines on the other side, thence from terra firma, as well as thence from the great Khan, where everything is on a splendid scale, meaning everything is huge. And again, it goes into the other Italian sailor, Venetian Giovanni Cabato, or as he was called in England, James Cabot. See, you always have different names. James Cabot was actually Giovanni Cabato. Both Moors, right? Made a voyage in 1497 under the auspices of King Henry VII and reached the continent of North America, which he described as the territory of the Great Khan. We therefore see, although the application of the name Indians to the native peoples of America was the outcome of an error, it was at the time of one which was excusable, but there is no reason for its continuance. It is, however, firmly entrenched in the popular mind, as if it was felt to be the point of honor to perpetuate the illusion of the great navigator. So as it says that these territories that they came to was also the territory of the Great Khan, because that was part of the deal, the treaty between the barbarians, the Tartarians, i.e. the Moors of the south, and the north, i.e. the Occident and the Orient. I'm trying to find it. I believe it's Hilder, but one of the Moors from my email list sent me the clip. So big up to him. Also big up to my other Moor who sent me this. Show you guys this. This bugged me out too. And my Moor Yaqub also sent me one of those twin sons. And the funny thing in talking about them twin sons, back in the days, people was saying how each one of them was a dual depiction, like a, what do you call that? Like a Photoshop or whatever. But all of the corresponding images are of the same, are from different places, you know what I'm saying, in the world. So that's what I'm talking about, man. This is a great book. If you don't have it, get this one. Islam. Yeah, I said Hilder. Thank you. Yeah, Islam to the Moor, Brady. I don't know where he got it from. But yeah, get this book by Waddell. It's really good.
It's the one in the orange box.
Also, the David Ritchie joint, Ancient Modern Britons. And he also did one on, I believe, fairies and all of that. He's really got into the Twa people that was out there.
Small skin.
PEICES. They sent me this too. It has come to the attention that numerous individuals in our state have rescinded all their contracts with the United States federal government and the state of Arizona and each of the political subdivisions establishing themselves as free men under the organic Constitution, National Republic of the United States of America. Subsequently, they may be driving without no auto registrations, driver's license, or other evidence contract. I urge you to inform yourself of these personal about this matter as soon as possible. If you would like to briefly by someone knowledgeable of this subject, please contact me. In the meantime, inasmuch as the procedure is entirely inappropriate or properly carried out, the procedure is entirely appropriate when properly carried out. So this right here is actually verification. This is all the way back in 1985. So this is verification before any of this sovereign citizen, any of this crap that they've been talking about. They know there is a difference, one, between the Republic of the United States and the so-called United States federal government. So this then means that any situation that was created to ensnare or produce agents to get black people to be involved in situations that was getting them trapped up and wrapped up in these whatever, right? All of that falls under Title 14, the 14th Amendment, and all of that then falls under the domestic treasonous enemy situation, right? Yup. Yeah. Also the violations of 18. These are the violations that you can check out that all go into it. This is from the 16th American Jurisprudence, 2nd edition, 98th section. I believe the year is in the late 90s. Don't quote me on that though. 16th American Jurisprudence, 2nd edition, section 177, late second, sequence 246. The general misconception is that any statute passed by legislatures bearing the appearance of law constitutes the law of the land. The U.S. Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and any statute to be valid must be in agreement. It is impossible for the Constitution and a law violating it to be valid. One must prevail. This is succinctly as stated in as follows. The general rule is that an unconstitutional statute, though having the form of law, which is colorable, is in reality no law, but is wholly void and ineffective for any purpose, since unconstitutionally dates from which the time of its enactment, and not merely from the date of its decision, do so branding it. An unconstitutional law in legal contemplation is so inoperative as if it had never been passed. You understand? So this applies to the masks. This applies to the stopping of the business. This applies to the people getting locked up for the masks. This is for the mask ordinance. You understand? This is for everything that has happened since March. And everybody that's been talking to you this is also Facebook. This is the fact checkers. This is everybody, B. This is everybody that's been pro-mask, pro this, pro that. This is all of that. All of that falls under this act, this sedition. And here in Florida, last week, some chick walked in and served the whole ruling council in Palm Beach and gave them 10 days to vacate their office, or they're going to be arrested under treason and sedition. If that pop off in Florida, son, it's a wrap. That means that all of us, that means, let's say we as Moors, the whole sovereign citizen thing. See how far back I showed you this go back to 1985? This means all of it. Everybody's getting paid. Everybody's going to jail. This is why they need this dude in office, because if this guy gets back in, it's over. Everybody's going to jail. Or the firing squad, or the lethal injection, or whatever. Everybody that posted, you know, anti-Trump this or that or whatever, all these people, they gonna go after all them people. That's why I've been telling more, be indifferent. Let's stop getting caught up in who's doing this and what person is, like, all of that don't make no sense anymore. Well, we got to figure out how to create an institution to be able to rightly teach this information to the children and put a black face on everything and it gave us white. And all of us got a piece of it. You know what I mean? Like this is the time where we could really, because all of it's proven to be a lie. All of it's fiction. So it's all fiction. You don't have no choice but to reset it. It's James Madison gave you the right to do that in the actual, in the book, governmental, in the Constitution itself. And like I said, the JASON Society is going to keep the rituals going. They done predicted rituals probably for the next 200,000 years if you let them. Because they all functioning under the same jurisdiction. And like I say, you can hate Christianity or whatever all you want. But again, it ain't start with no white man. If it ain't start with the white man, it can't end with the white man. Even if you get rid of the white man, they still going to be worshiping this fictitious Jesus that really is just an aberration of some, like I said, Illuminati, what they call Illuminati, which again is really a derivation of the so-called Alumdados. So again, if there's two different United States functioning, we got to solely do business through this side while this one is faded out. That's why memes and these things are so important, and they use them in warfare, because it's all about controlling the battleground in the mind first, subjecting the people to the fictitious reality so they never go into the real one. So like I said, the more of us declare our nationality properly, the more of us establish our trust in everything properly, the more we can now put them in the proper perspective and get out of this. However, it's not going to work if everybody using weaponized information to bang on one another and act like everybody's real contribution is not important. Like, that's crazy to me. Anybody I see that's actually like, okay, this person consistently is putting stuff out, I try to give them a shout out or whatever. Like I said, I wouldn't even, it got to the point where I couldn't read so much books and all of that anymore. Thankfully, the internet did come out. And there were people out there who was sparked and did knowledge and did research and that will send me stuff. Because inshallah, I'd always go to whatever the topic is I'm dealing with. You know what I mean? But again, you know, I want to give respect to everybody that's been out here. As long as they've been doing it. Yeah, man. It's all proven. Like I said, everything with the prophet, you're right. Everything Circle 7 is proven, you know. Yet, all information properly applied can be proven, you know. And I think all information, true information, flow from Allah. So the devil in the devil dictionary, there's a saying that it says that if God is all powerful, then if God is all powerful, then it cannot be all good. But then if God is not all good and things come from God being good, then that means that it's the reverse. What that all is to say is that everything that the devil says is the opposite of what he means. Whereas everything you mean is supposed to illustrate what you're saying. And there comes the switch up. So again, I think wholly and understanding this aspect of it will at least put you in a perspective to not get caught up in things like, you know, some of these movements and these fake internet-based identities that's actually getting people locked up. They locking people up for being fake Indians now. White people and black people. Somebody just sent me a clip of some other so-called black people from one of these movements, ADOS, Aboriginal, whatever. They all just got bagged up on setting up some fake Indian tribe, taking money, getting donations and money from people for it. That's just how they put the Empress in them up. See what I'm saying? Taking something real and try to put it into the federal stuff without being right. That's really the enemy. But again, man, as the Quran says, we are a mixture of truth and what does it say? We're a mixture of truth and falsehood, strangely mixed. You just gotta strive for more truth than falsehood. Inshallah. Yeah, bro, they got them with a flag now and all of that. I even see Moors who were so ultra Moors. Now they all ADOS with shirts and you know what I'm saying? Wilding. So it is what it is, man. People believe what they want to believe. So anybody else any last questions before we close out? This is the so-called Christian, mythical Christian god, Prester John. El Preste Juan here, but they call him Prester John, which is a part of the fictitious so-called Christian kingdom that existed here and was wiped out by the wicked Mohammedans, whatever. Another fiction that was created, because this is really image of King Solomon, but whatever. Yeah, all of that's fake. Anybody talking about that? Those are all Jesuits. See what I'm saying? Those are Jesuit Christians pumping false information, half mestizo, half out here trying to, convince dark-skinned black people that, they should have always been Ethiopians. And I'm showing you that even the Ethiopians wasn't that. They was actually really Indians who actually took the Ethiopian identity and basically gave it back to them as Italians, which is why they call Italians Guineas. See what I'm saying? And why they so into them being dark-skinned and all of that. Because Mussolini and all these people was black. And again, Victor, a.k.a. Selassie, and the rest of them was playing that game like all the rest of these guys be playing. But again, I've been saying this for years. When I first started talking about the Pappenheim, it was also called the Wappenheim out of so-called Bavaria, out of Fleecing, that all of these guys was basically just working the same bloodline trying to get over here so they all could have the land that we did. But the difference is they was not Caucasians and all of that. And now all of the John fever that they trying to put out there is just more mystery God stuff that's really a part of the apostolic succession, the same stuff they got the Hebrew Israelites on. So in the end, all of these guys are Christians, which means what? The Ethiopians, or what you call Coptic Ethiopians, which means what? They're really Indians, which means then really polytheists, which means again they all dealing with the caste system, right? You notice all the people talking about the Prester John stuff is light skin. That ain't coincidence, bro. And I'm not trying to diss light-skinned people. I'm just saying that whole colorism stuff that's coming from these people that's functioning with this caste system, creating this fake knowledge shit I'm talking about. Trying to act like they not Moors and all of that, when really they all agents of Rome. Same thing. Yeah, it's a mythic. It might as well be He-Man, yo. This dude might as well be He-Man. Understand? It's fake. All of that Prester John stuff is fake. That's all mystery, Freemasonic jargon that they put into the whole understanding. Really, he's Hiram Abiff. Really, he's Solomon. Really, he's David. All through the esoteric. No, this guy I'm showing you, Prester John. And the people on the internet bigging this dude up like he's the fake Christ. So they was a part of this secret world of Christians that existed in total peace until the wicked Muslims came and shut them down. These guys are insane, yo. Yeah. So again, don't get caught up, man. Don't get caught up in the BS, man. Support people doing real research, even if it may make you uncomfortable. If it seems to be real and it checks out, go with it, because you may be the one to expound on it further. Yeah, that public enemy, that's all part of the ritual. They all down with it. Everybody's down with it. That's public. That's how I look at it now. Unless they speak it directly against it, they down with it. And even if they're speaking against it, like with Kanye, I just told you the story on that. He did it to himself by worshiping that dude. So it ain't got nothing to do with us. Yeah, he kicked out whenever the Jews want to get something popping with some black people, they always use Griff. You notice that? That ain't no coincidence either. So again, I ain't trying to diss nobody. You know, these people get sensitive. I don't even care that much. We just talk about it because you asked. You know what I mean? But essentially, all of it's scripted. All of these dudes working with the algorithm. Start to turn your phone off at night. Check the health joint on your phone. Wipe out any information that's on it like that. Block it from doing it. Like, for real. Yeah, Ginsburg. Yeah, you asked about that. She was a part of the feminazi party because her peoples was ex-Nazis that got out and got free of Nuremberg. Her and Ginsburg and the rest of them all came up in the MK programs, all with the pedophilia and all of that. And she spent her whole life basically trying to shield that she was really about that by pushing abortion rights and all of that. That really just affected black people and black women and made black women more subservient to the system. So I hope she's burning real heavy, if she's dead at all. But I think this is an open space for Trump to get who he want in there to help cook the rest of them. The COVID thing, the defund the police thing is really about them trying to get robot police to take their place. So unless you got your own community and your own society established or your own district or municipality on paper established already with your own human guards, they're going to try to start to enforce that. That's what the defund the police thing is coming through. And that's all coming through these devils, like I'm saying. Oh yeah, big up to Jaheem. He gave me a shout out a couple of days, a little while ago. Big up to him. Anybody else? Go to settings, apps, Google Play, boom. I don't even think I got Google Play on Jaheem. Yeah, peace to Jaheem. He gave me a shout out. That was peace. And they clowning him. But you know, that's what it's gonna be. Yeah. Gonna be with these people. Anybody else have any last questions? What's up? I'm thinking about doing something after we inshallah solidify some of the stuff we've been working on, inshallah. So I'll do that. I'll definitely let you guys know. But for the most part, we're just striving to get the reality of what we can get popping without all of the fakeness and striving not to lose it through this fake internet thing. Oh, also big up to one of you guys' classmates. Big up to him. Major accomplishment. Posted, finished his book, Moorish Cookbook. Big up to brother Chef Judah Woke. Good looking out, homie. Truth Talk Nation. Great book. Definitely support. I want to support the Moors, especially Moors from class doing it big. You know what I mean? This is where we affect as much as we can. You know? Yeah, man, because we're dealing with this double sun, like I was talking about with the Taurus fields. Everything is overlapping. So we'll see if these asteroids get here by November 3rd. And then after that, we'll see what's up with the alien invasion. But until then, definitely support, man. The Moorish Cookbook is definitely a good joint. We're going to do a show, I think, this week, too. So look out for that. And like I said, any other info specifically with that, I'll definitely go with you guys on. Also, anybody else I know who has good books out, has good information, I definitely want to shout them out. Big platform, man, because if we don't support, you know what I'm saying? You know, look out for him. Look into brother from you know, so many people, man. So just try to get a win for him. Maybe next time, hopefully. Indeed, man. But yeah, man, we definitely need to have new versions of how to eat to live. So this is a great joint for more specifically from America. You know, we need to produce American-based products. So I really in support of that. Indeed, our nationality does bring us that, brother. So again, anybody wants to hit me up at houseofl@hotmail.com. And we can definitely build. So definitely check out that book by J.J. Hilder. Also check out the other book by Waddell, The Phoenicians and Britons. Also check out Ancient and Modern Britons. Also check out Unexplained Faces, Unexpected Faces in Ancient America by Alexander von Wuthenau. There's another one I want you to check out. Golden Trade and More. Definitely check that out because that shows how we jointed through the continents. And start to research Cathay. And you'll notice that the more you get into Cathay, it takes you into China. And the more you get into China, you'll notice that there really appears no Great Wall of China on any maps of ancient China until after the 1600s. So that should say something about what's going on too. You know what I mean? How old is these things that we're talking about? I think because of where the fault line of the New Madrid earthquake is and how deep the fault goes to the inner earth in terms of the vibrations. Because the deeper the joint, the more it vibrates, the heavier the shake, you know? So I think the fault, I think the new fault is in Madrid, Montana. Check it out. There's a book on it though. Get the book, The New Madrid Earthquake. And what's interesting is when you read it, you'll see it's almost like they leaving like whole parts out of it. It is Montana, right? Which is old Mauritania, according to the annexation of Texas. Missouri. So yeah, check those things out, man. All right. Okay, guys. So again, thank you guys for coming through. You can definitely hit me up at houseofbell@hotmail.com. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. Pax et amor in Ruina eos mortis Romum. Precornia malut laudis. Lucian. Oh, also, big up Selena. Her birthday's going to be this week. Big up Celia and Moss for bringing it through. Islam. Or just hit me and I'll see if I could send it to you.